When I was a kid, I watched movies that had some business content, and it was tough to tell how close to reality it really was. For example, I don't know if you've seen American Psycho, but there's a scene in which, 6 or 7 or 5 investment bankers are sitting around a table, and all they have to do is compare who has the nicest or the newest business card. And I thought, wow, is that what investment banking is really like? Well, come to find out, not really. I mean, between my experience working with investment bankers, and I actually, worked as an investment banker for a couple of years, I know there's a lot more that's done than simply passing around business cards, but that's kind of how it is. You watch movies as a kid, and then you rewatch them as an adult or think through them, and a lot of what you saw just comes out as being off base, or you think about it in a different way. There's 6 movies and 1 TV show in particular that have a business content to them. In this video, I'll point out those business instances or lessons that you can learn. And I don't know that you'll be able to apply them to your business because some of them are a little bit on the humorous side, but there's still some learning to be had here. Now, some of these lessons might really apply, but some of them involve paranormal activity. So how can you relate that back to your business? Well, I'll let you know if you stay tuned. First instance or movie we'll talk about is Trading Places. There are a lot of lessons to learn in trading places, from diversifying your investments to not bribing government officials, but at the end of the day, it was the hubris on the brothers Duke and Duke that led to their downfall. They placed a bet that somebody off the streets couldn't be able to replicate their success, and that led to their downfall. The next example is in the Terminator franchise. The company Cyberdyne Systems makes an AI system that eventually takes over the world. In today's environment, with AI increasingly relevant and also increasingly powerful, it's a very timely reminder of the potential that AI has to have not a positive impact on society, but a negative one. If you look at the video that we just did on the soap opera in Silicon Valley, what happened with ChatGPT or OpenAI, many people think that the part of the reason for that riff was because of the concerns on the part of the board about how risky their AI platform was becoming. So certainly far, far away from anything depicted in anything like Terminator. But again, it's interesting to think that, there's already people that are getting worried, and not just worried, that are sounding the alarm about the potential negative impacts of AI on society. When you think about AI, the concept that is talked about in other movies, specifically Terminator, was the concept of self-aware. So do you think the AI systems that are currently being developed are going to become self-aware? Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. The next example, one everybody in the financial world would recognize is the movie Wall Street. And I think the lesson there is not to criticize I think the full quote is greed, for lack of a better word, is good. But you really need to think about how you're going to effectuate that greed, if you will. Part of his downfall came from insider trading. Insider trading perhaps in that day was harder to track, but in this day and age, no way. Even if I were a crook, which I'm not, I would think that I would pick a smarter route to go down than insider trading. But, going back to the characters, I think they felt that they were above the law, but that they were doing what any normal person would do in their situation, and that's how they justified it. I don't really know. It has been a long time since I've seen that film, and I'm not a psychology expert or anything along those lines, but that's what it seems like is the ability of the bad actor to raise his actions and his opinions. The next example is hard to have a takeaway from it because it's, how do you learn from a missed opportunity? We've all had them in life where we opened door A and we should have opened door B, or we thought this was important, but really we should have thought that was important. The example here that I think is very relevant is in the TV series Seinfeld. There was one season or over a few seasons where Elaine was working for a publishing company. And well, if you've seen the series, we all know the relationship between Elaine and Kramer. And yes, they were friends, but I don't really think Elaine had a high opinion of Kramer in terms of his business sense. One example that he had that might prove to show Elaine that he had an okay business sense was his line of cologne called The Beach. Now, everybody laughed, but Calvin Klein or whoever actually picked it up. That wasn't the only example. The other example that directly relates to Elaine's profession was the coffee table book that Kramer came up with. Kramer told Elaine about this, and Elaine thought it was the most terrible idea ever. However, her boss found out about it, loved the idea. He's like, why didn't you think of this, Elaine? And even went so far as to getting national press. Now, obviously, this is just a comedy TV series where they can choose to go whichever way they want, but it's a good example how sometimes your biases or whatnot are off base, and we've all been there. The next example is largely humorous as well, but it does speak to the importance of culture and how strong a company culture can be. Now, I'm sure we've all heard the phrase strategy eats culture for lunch, or vice versa perhaps, but and I'm not going to make an opinion on that. I mean, I think sometimes strategy is more important. I think sometimes culture is more important. I just think it depends on where the company is at. Whether they've historically had a strong culture and it's great, then maybe you need to focus on strategy a little bit more. Regardless, though, the movie I'd like to talk about here is Dodgeball. In Dodgeball, we have the antagonist Globo Gym who's trying to overtake the smaller player Average Joe's. If you look at Globo Gym, you have this CEO or whatever who's probably narcissistic and, very much the macho alpha male type who thinks he can take over the world, one gym at a time, so to speak. And then you have Average Joe's, which is just a group of folks that are probably not going to win any fitness competitions, but, on the other hand, it's going to be probably a much more enjoyable workout experience. But at the end of the day, I think it's a good example of a smaller company, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a smaller company, but one company having a very strong culture, and that culture being a key part of why they're able to compete against a much larger competitor. Now, if you've been watching just to hear about how paranormal activity can influence a business decision, be it good or bad, well, thank you for making it this long. Your wait is over. In the business press, at large, you read a lot about recurring revenue and subscription-based revenue models. And the trend is to try to take businesses that historically have been, one-off payments or project-oriented and try to turn them into a more recurring nature of revenue to lessen the swings of revenue for a company or a customer or probably both. If there's something strange in the neighborhood, who are you going to call? I mean, if you think about Ghostbusters, those guys should absolutely offer a subscription service. It's just like pest control. You don't just want to call the pest control company whenever you have spiders crawling over your house. You want the pest control company to be there 24/7, 365 days a year so that you never have a spider problem. Now, I don't really believe in ghosts so much, but if I did, I wouldn't want them crawling around in my living room before I called the Ghostbusters. They need to be doing whatever they need to be doing all year, not just when you have a problem. I think TV, movies, and books, particularly fiction, are really interesting to read and to watch and think about, how life imitates art and vice versa. I'd be interested to hear what are some of the videos or some of the movies that you thought had a real impact on how you think about business, or what are some movies that you just thought had a really funny take on something happens in business or whatever. Let me know in the comments, and who knows, maybe we'll make a video about it. I realize private equity is not as exciting as Ghost, and on top of that, I'm the most boring guy in private equity, so you're probably not going to pick up the phone and call me like you would maybe the Ghostbusters. But if you do like these videos, be sure to like and subscribe, and let me know what you'd like to see in the future.